Are you trying to solo like Slash, but you're stuck playing the same old scales and ideas? Well, don't worry, because you're not alone. I've taught hundreds of guitarists, and I know how easy it is to revert to playing the scales that you know the most. Being a massive Slash fan for over 20 years, I've dissected his playing and figured out what scales he uses and how he uses them to make his solos stand out from the rest. So in this video, I'm going to show you 3 of Slash's go-to scales, the ones I wish I'd learnt sooner, and more importantly, how he actually uses them to get that unmistakable, soulful sound so that the next time you improvise, you've got more freedom and more control over the notes that you choose to play. Now, these are the exact scales that I reach for when I want to break out of the box and inject that Slash signature sound into my solos. And these are just a taste of what's inside my How to Play Like Slash masterclass, where I show you all of his favorite scales in all positions on the fretboard, but above all, how to use them in real world applications and how to improvise with them as well. So I highly recommend checking that out. The link's in the description. So I'm going to go over the scales first, and then I'll show you a couple of tricks that Slash uses to make them work. When most people think of Slash, this is the scale that they're hearing. It has a very dark, sad, melancholic sound to it, and I think this is why Slash uses it a lot, because he pours his emotion out into his music through his guitar playing. It's been said that Slash didn't really talk about his feelings that much, but it all came out in his playing. There's nothing wrong with talking about feelings, by the way, shall I just say? It's what real men do. You can hear this scale in Night Train, Don't Cry, Sweet Child of Mine, and loads more. So the scale is the natural minor scale, and the notes are... I'm showing you the notes in this format rather than in one key so that you can transpose them and use them in any key. So you would use this scale over a typical diatonic minor chord progression, and this means that all the chords that are being used are from within that scale or key. And here's what it would sound like. So I can't go into all the theory behind what scale to use in this video. Believe me, I would if I could, but this video would be hours long. So if you do want to know more about what scales to use and what notes to use and when, highly recommend checking out the course. There's a link in the description. Now, this next scale is arguably Slash's most used scale. It has such a distinctive sound, and I think more people should know this scale first and definitely add it to their repertoire. And it can take you from being a regular pub guitarist to sounding more like a pro. Now, it's still a minor scale, but it has a much more uplifting and brighter feel to it, and that's only down to one note difference. And you can hear Slash playing it in Paradise City, Mr. Brownstone, and Landslide by Slash's Snake Pit, and so many more. This is the Dorian Scale, and here are the notes. Why am I getting so much buzz? Sorry for the buzzing. So there are 2 really simple, maybe overly simple, ways of figuring out whether to use the Dorian scale or the natural minor scale that we looked at before. Basically, if you listen to the chord progression and you play the minor 6th note, if that sounds really odd and out of place and horrible, try the Dorian mode. So try the major 6th, the other way to tell is if the 4th chord from that scale is played as a major chord instead of a minor chord. For example, in the key of A minor, the 4th chord would usually be D minor. But if it's D major, use the Dorian scale. I don't want to go too heavy on the theory here. It's for a whole other day. So for now, those 2 are the most simplest ways of figuring out which of those 2 scales to use. So if you don't know where to start with these and you want some Slash inspired licks for these scales, I've included over 40 in my How to Play Like Slash course, fully tabbed, fully notated, along with backing tracks as well, so you can practice all these ideas in a musical context. So this next scale isn't really a scale that Slash will play all of the notes from. Instead, he would borrow some of the notes from this scale, depending on what he's playing over. It might sound a little bit complicated, but bear with me, I'll show you what I mean. And I wanted to include that scale for this reason. And it's also a very popular scale used in blues and jazz music, and Slash definitely blends it into his playing. It's the Mixelyian Scale, and the notes are... So you can use this scale over typical blues progressions or dominant seventh chords, and even major style progressions sometimes, when you want to add a little bit of tension and release. It's basically a major scale with a flattened seventh, but it's also very close to a Dorian scale, but with a major third. So you can kind of blend this scale and mix it in with major pentatonic or minor pentatonic, depending on what you want to achieve. And you can hear him blending major and minor together in Slither, Fall to Pieces, The Last Fight, and loads of his other blues type stuff. Now, the problem most people have when learning a new scale is they just memorize the shapes and end up just playing up and down the notes. But if we want to sound like Slash, we need to make it sound musical. So I'm going to give you 2 quick tips that you can use today to make these sound less like a nursery rhyme and more like a rock ballad. So tip number 1, imagine a solo is a pizza. You've got the bass, which is the tomato and the cheese. These are your pentatonic scale tones and ideas. Nothing wrong with a classic margarita. You can still sound amazing and expressive with this scale, but sprinkle on some toppings and it becomes something totally different and unique. Now these toppings are your scale tones. Just like everybody has their favorite pizza, each guitarist also has their favorite notes. So if you know what Slash's favorite pizza is, you'll know how to sound like him. Is that right? Hello Slash? Just what's your favorite pizza? So for example, minor pentatonic scales are root, flat 3, 4, 5, and flat 7. And then if we want to play Dorian, for example, we can just add the 2 and the 6th. So start with the licks you already know. And then just add the scale tones in between. Just apply that to whatever mode you're using. Natural minor scale, Phrygian mode, harmonic minor, whatever scale you want. And that's exactly what Slash does. His core is pentatonic, but he'll sneak in the Dorian notes and whatever else to make it more melodic or unexpected. So he doesn't just abandon the pentatonic totally, he decorates it like a pizza. Second tip, don't treat all the notes equally. So remember that all notes have a different function. Root notes will sound finished or resolved. So we're going to sound like we're coming back home, depending on what chord you're playing over. The flat 7th or the minor 3rd will create tension. And they're going to want to be resolved, again, depending on what chord you're playing at the time. And then the other scale tones, like the 6 and the 2 and the 4, are going to add colour. So it's not just about playing all of the notes and cramming them all in there for the sake of it. You really should be thinking about which ones to use and why. And this is exactly what makes Slash stand out. See, the thing is, you can play scales up and down all day long, but if you don't know how to make them sound musical, you're going to end up always sounding like a bedroom player and not Slash, or at least not like a pro. So I highly recommend checking out my How to Play Like Slash masterclass. There's a link in the description, because I show you exactly how to improvise like Slash using some examples from scratch. I show you step by step how I come up with a Slash style solo, and you can put all of these scales to use in the right way. But in the meantime, I highly recommend watching this video next, because it's going to give you some musical ways of putting these scales to use.